$10 billion. That's the amount of money that moved through the American economy in 2023 because of one person. Not a hedge fund manager, not a tech billionaire, not a Fortune 500 CEO. A 33-year-old pop singer from Pennsylvania, Taylor Swift generated more economic activity in a single year than the GDP of entire countries. Her concert tour made more money than the film industries of most nations combined. Hotels tripled their prices when she came to town. Airlines added emergency flights. Restaurants hired extra staff weeks in advance. And for the first time in history, the Federal Reserve of the United States mentioned a musician by name in their official economic report. They said she was affecting inflation. One woman, affecting the economic indicators of the largest economy on Earth. This is not a story about celebrity. This is not a story about music. This is a story about power. The kind of power that governments chase. The kind of power that corporations spend billions trying to manufacture. Taylor Swift built it with guitar strings and handwritten lyrics. And now, entire cities are competing for her attention, like she's a multinational corporation deciding where to build a factory. Because in a very real sense, that's exactly what she is. To understand how we got here, we need to go back. Not to Taylor Swift's childhood, not to her first album. We need to go back to a fundamental question about the modern economy. What makes people spend money? Economists have studied this for centuries. They've built models. They've created theories. They've filled libraries with research about consumer behavior. But the simplest answer is also the most overlooked. People spend money on things that make them feel something, and nobody in the modern era understands this better than Taylor Swift. In 1955, a man named Walt Disney opened a theme park in Anaheim, California. The experts thought he was insane. Why would people pay money to walk around a fake town and shake hands with someone in a mouse costume? Disney understood something the experts didn't. He wasn't selling rides. He wasn't selling merchandise. He was selling an emotional experience. Families would fly across the country and spend thousands of dollars because Disneyland made them feel something. It made them feel like they were part of a story. That single insight built one of the most valuable companies in history. Disney's market cap today exceeds $200 billion, and almost all of it traces back to that simple idea. Sell feelings, not products. Taylor Swift took this playbook and applied it to herself, but to understand how she did it, we need to look at where she started. In 2005, the music industry was in crisis. Napster had destroyed the old business model. Album sales were collapsing. Record labels were laying off staff. Artists were watching their income evaporate. The conventional wisdom was clear. Music was becoming worthless. You couldn't compete with free. The industry needed to find new revenue streams or die. Into this chaos walked a 15-year-old girl with a demo tape. Taylor Swift had moved to Nashville with her family for one reason. She wanted a record deal. She spent months knocking on doors. She got rejected everywhere. The labels said she was too young. They said country music didn't work with teenage artists. They said she should come back in a few years. One small label took a chance. Big Machine Records signed her in 2005. They gave her a modest budget and low expectations. Her first album came out in 2006. It sold reasonably well. Nothing spectacular. Just a solid debut from a new country artist. But something strange was happening behind the scenes. Taylor Swift was building something the record label didn't fully understand. She was building a relationship with her fans that went far beyond normal artist-audience dynamics. She would spend hours on MySpace responding to fan messages. She would memorize the names of people who came to multiple concerts. She would write blog posts that read like diary entries, sharing her fears and insecurities. This was unusual. Most artists maintained professional distance. They had managers and publicists who handled fan communication. Swift did it herself. And the fans noticed. By 2008, her second album, Fearless, became a phenomenon. It won 4 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year. She was the youngest person ever to win that award. But the numbers told only part of the story. The real story was what was happening in the fan community. People weren't just buying her music. They were building their identities around it. They called themselves Swifties. They organized online. They created fan theories about her songs. They defended her against any criticism with almost military coordination. This wasn't a fan base. This was a movement. The music industry watched this with confusion. They understood how to manufacture pop stars. They had formulas. You get a good-looking person. You give them catchy songs written by professionals. You spend millions on marketing. You create a product. Swift wasn't following the formula. She was writing her own songs. She was making creative decisions the label disagreed with. She was building direct connections with fans that bypassed the traditional media gatekeepers. And somehow, it was working better than anything the industry had seen in decades. By 2014, Taylor Swift had become the biggest pop star in the world. Her album, 1989, sold almost 10 million copies globally. In an era when people said album sales were dead, she was proving them wrong, but she was about to do something that would change her trajectory forever. In November 2014, Swift removed her entire music catalog from Spotify. The streaming service had become the dominant way people consumed music. Every major artist was on the platform. Swift said no. She wrote an op-ed explaining her decision. She said Spotify undervalued music. She said artists deserve to be paid fairly. The industry called her naive. Spotify had 300 million users. Walking away from that audience was career suicide. 3 years later, Spotify agreed to new payment terms for artists. Swift's music returned to the platform. She had won, and the industry learned an important lesson. Taylor Swift's fans would follow her anywhere. If she wasn't on Spotify, they would buy physical albums. If she wasn't on one platform, they would find another. Their loyalty wasn't to convenience, it was to her. This was power that other artists didn't have, and Swift was about to discover just how valuable that power could be. In June 2019, a man named Scooter Braun made a business decision that would reshape the music industry. Braun managed some of the biggest artists in the world, including Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande. He purchased a company called Big Machine Records for $300 million. Included in that purchase were the master recordings of Taylor Swift's first 6 albums. Swift found out about the sale from the news. She was never given the option to buy her own music. What happened next was unprecedented. Swift didn't just complain, she declared war. She wrote a public letter accusing Braun of bullying her for years. She said he had blocked her from performing her old songs at an awards show. She said he had refused to sell her the masters unless she signed a new contract with his company. The accusations were explosive. The industry held its breath. Most artists in this situation would have quietly negotiated. Masters change hands all the time. It's an ugly part of the business, but it's normal. Swift refused to accept normal. She announced that she would re-record every single album she had ever made with Big Machine Records. All 6 of them, from scratch. This would take years. It would cost tens of millions of dollars. And nobody knew if fans would actually buy albums they technically already owned. The experts said it wouldn't work. Why would consumers pay for the same songs twice? The original versions were already on streaming platforms. The new versions would sound almost identical. There was no logical reason for the re-records to succeed. The experts forgot about emotion. In November 2021, Swift released Red Taylor's version, her re-recorded version of her 2012 album. It debuted at number 1. It broke streaming records. A 10-minute version of the song All Too Well became a viral phenomenon. It got its own short film. It dominated social media for weeks. The fans didn't buy the album despite already having the songs. They bought it because Taylor asked them to. They bought it to prove a point. They bought it as an act of loyalty. Scooter Braun sold Swift's masters shortly after for $300 million. The new owner reportedly reached out to Swift about purchasing them. Negotiations went nowhere. It didn't matter anymore. Swift had made the original recordings worthless. Why would anyone stream the old version when the Taylor's version existed? The fans had made their choice, and that choice made Taylor Swift one of the most powerful figures in the entertainment industry. But everything that came before was just a prelude. The real demonstration of the Taylor Swift economy was about to begin. In November 2022, Swift announced the Eras Tour. It would be her first full concert tour since 2018. The show would span her entire career, covering songs from every album she had ever released. Tickets would go on sale through Ticketmaster in a staggered pre-sale system. What happened next broke the internet. 14 million people tried to access the Ticketmaster website simultaneously. The system collapsed. The website crashed repeatedly. People who had waited in virtual queues for hours were kicked out with no warning. Tickets that were supposed to cost a few $100s appeared on resale sites for $10,000 or more. It was chaos. It was unprecedented, and it was about to become a political issue. The United States Congress launched an investigation. Senators held hearings about Ticketmaster's monopoly on concert ticket sales. The company's president was called to testify. He apologized for the failures. He blamed unexpected demand. But everyone watching understood the subtext. Taylor Swift had generated more ticket demand than any system could handle. She had exposed the infrastructure weaknesses of an entire industry simply by announcing she would perform. The Eras Tour began in March 2023 in Glendale, Arizona. The city temporarily renamed itself Swift City in her honor. This was not a joke. This was a real government decision, and it was just the beginning of cities competing for her attention. Let me explain what happened when Taylor Swift came to town. In Denver, economists measured the impact of a single weekend of concerts. The number was $140 million. Hotels that normally charged $200 per night were charging $600. Restaurants booked reservations weeks in advance. Rideshare services brought in extra drivers from other cities. The entire local economy shifted to accommodate the influx of Swift fans. This pattern repeated everywhere she went. In Pittsburgh, the economic impact was $46 million per night. In Los Angeles, it exceeded $320 million total. In Philadelphia, it was almost as much as the city made from hosting the NFL draft. One concert tour was generating the economic activity of major sporting events, and Swift was playing over 100 shows. The Federal Reserve took notice. In their Beige Book, an official report on economic conditions across the country, they mentioned Taylor Swift by name. They said her tour was driving inflation in hotels and restaurants in multiple regions. This had never happened. The Federal Reserve does not typically discuss pop culture. They discuss interest rates and employment figures and trade balances, but the Taylor Swift economy was too significant to ignore. She was a macroeconomic factor. By the end of 2023, the Eras Tour had grossed over $1 billion in ticket sales alone. This made it the highest grossing concert tour in history. But ticket sales were almost irrelevant compared to the secondary economic impact. Fans weren't just buying tickets, they were buying flights, they were booking hotels, they were eating at restaurants, they were purchasing merchandise, they were taking taxis and buying friendship bracelets and going to local attractions. The total economic impact of the tour was estimated at $5 billion in the United States alone, and the tour wasn't over. Then Singapore made a move that revealed how seriously governments were taking the Taylor Swift economy. The city-state of Singapore paid Taylor Swift an estimated $3 million per show to perform 6 concerts in their country. But that wasn't the most remarkable part. The deal included an exclusivity clause. Swift could not perform anywhere else in Southeast Asia. No shows in Thailand. No shows in the Philippines. No shows in Indonesia. Singapore wanted a monopoly on Swift fans from the entire region. The strategy worked. Fans flew to Singapore from across Asia. Hotel bookings increased 450% during the concert dates. The tourism board estimated a total economic impact of $370 million from 6 shows. Singapore had treated Taylor Swift like a trade deal. They had outbid their neighbors for access to her economic power. Other countries complained. The Philippines and Thailand issued statements expressing disappointment. A pop concert had become an international diplomatic incident. This is the Taylor Swift economy in its purest form. It's not about music. It's about the ability to move money across borders. When Taylor Swift decides to perform somewhere, she brings an economic stimulus with her. Hotels fill up, restaurants hire, local businesses see their best weeks of the year, and when she leaves, the money goes with her. She is a portable economy, and cities around the world are now competing to host her. But how did one person accumulate this much economic power? The answer lies in understanding what makes the Swifties different from other fan communities. Most celebrity fan bases are passive. They consume content when it's released. They buy merchandise occasionally. They attend a concert once every few years. The relationship is transactional. Artist creates product. Fan buys product. Repeat. The Swiftie community operates differently. They have built an entire culture around decoding Taylor Swift's messages. Every social media post is analyzed for hidden meanings. Every lyric is connected to real events in her life. Every outfit choice is documented and interpreted. This isn't consumption. This is participation. The fans feel like they are part of the creative process. They feel like they know Taylor Swift personally. They feel like they are protecting a friend. This emotional investment translates into economic behavior. Swifties don't buy concert tickets because they want to hear music. They buy tickets because attending an Eras Tour show is a core part of their identity. Missing the tour would mean missing a fundamental shared experience. It would mean being left out of conversations that will continue for years. The economic value of a Taylor Swift concert ticket includes the social value of having been there. Swift understands this intuitively. She structures her entire business around maintaining emotional connection. She includes handwritten notes in her album packaging. She holds secret listening sessions for fans at her house. She creates elaborate Easter egg hunts for every announcement. Each of these choices costs money and time. From a pure business efficiency standpoint, they're unnecessary. But from an emotional economy standpoint, they're invaluable. They make fans feel seen, and people who feel seen spend money. Compare this to other entertainment products. When Disney releases a movie, they spend hundreds of millions on marketing. They buy advertisements, they create social media campaigns, they pay influencers to generate buzz. This is manufactured attention. It works, but it's expensive and it fades quickly. Taylor Swift spends almost nothing on traditional advertising. She doesn't need to. Her fans do the marketing for her. When she announces a new album, Twitter trends within minutes. News organizations cover it as a major story. The Swiftie community shares and reshares and analyzes every detail. This is organic attention. It's more powerful than advertising because it comes from genuine enthusiasm, and it costs the artist nothing. The music industry has spent the last decade trying to replicate this model. Every new pop star is instructed to build authentic connections with fans. Every label invests in social media engagement strategies, but almost none of them work. The Swiftie phenomenon appears to be non-replicable. You cannot manufacture authenticity. Either the artist genuinely cares about fan connection, or they don't, and fans can always tell the difference. This brings us to 2024 and the international expansion of the Eras Tour. When Swift announced she would bring the tour to Europe, the same economic patterns emerged. Stockholm saw hotel prices triple during show weeks. Edinburgh estimated economic impact at over £77 million. London hosted 8 shows at Wembley Stadium, generating hundreds of millions for the local economy. The tour had become a global phenomenon. But the most interesting development was happening back in the United States. Cities that had hosted the tour in 2023 were already lobbying for a return visit. Economic development officials were studying the impact data. They were building presentations for their mayors and governors. They were arguing that attracting Taylor Swift was equivalent to landing a major corporate headquarters or professional sports team. This represents a fundamental shift in how we think about economic development. For decades, cities competed by offering tax breaks to corporations. They built stadiums to attract sports franchises. They invested in convention centers to host business conferences. The theory was that big institutions bring economic activity. Taylor Swift proved that a single